It's wild to me to have Kanye West, who was in many ways traumatized and corrupted by exposure to porn, trotting out his wife absolutely nude for his kids to see. This week, Ye came out with a tweet in an effort to promote an upcoming song, and he talked about the impetus for the song called Cousin, about how when he was a child, he and his cousin were engaging in oral sex. And I want to sort of react to that tweet from a psychologist's perspective and talk about what the how that happens, what are the implications of that kind of behavior in kids. And then I want to talk about what we see in Kanye West today and how that might be influenced by his childhood. So before we get into that, if you're new here, my name is David Colarossi. I'm a licensed psychologist, and I use events in pop culture to talk about psychological concepts. So tonight we're talking about Ye and his childhood. Okay, we're going to break down this tweet, but first, if you like this video, please hit the like button, notification bell, and if you love the channel, subscribe. So if you read this tweet, the tone of it is, I think the goal of it is vulnerability. He's trying to get people to understand where he comes from. If you track Ye over the months and over the years, what you notice is he lashes out at the public in anger, and then he lashes out at the public in vulnerability, in sadness. It's a little bit like, please care about me, please support me, here's who I am. And then because he doesn't get what he wants, he says, well, screw you. I'm going to be super provocative and super aggressive, and you're all the worst. And then, oh, I'm just a hurt young little boy. Take care of me. And then he lashes. It's just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. This tweet to me feels like a provocative effort to get people to care about him. He's trying to reveal himself to us because he thinks that people will then understand him. And it works. For me, I feel more compassion, more empathy for Ye now that I know this story than I did before. From a psychologist's perspective, when we hear about kids at such a young age having sex, it's a red flag for some kind of traumatic experience. One of the kids has been abused, or they're growing up in a super hypersexualized environment, or they've been exposed to pornography at a very young age. At the age of 6 or 8 or 10, kids are going to be curious about their developing bodies, and a certain degree of exploration, benign exploration, is normal. Engaging in oral sex is very abnormal, and it tells you that those kids were in a very dangerous environment. The fact that he, at that age, had access to his dad's porno mags and his mom's, I think, is very concerning. And I should explain, the reason why sex at such a young age is so damaging for kids, it's damaging for a lot of reasons. The big ones are, first, it stalls identity development. At the age of 8 years old, 10 years old, a kid is figuring out who they are, what they value, what they like, how they feel about things, who they want to be. It's a very self-reflective period. They're finding themselves. And all of a sudden, the focus shifts away from the internal to something that seems very external. It stunts development because all of a sudden they become totally fixated on something outside of them. That's the first thing. The second thing is, at that age, a child doesn't have the emotional capacity, self-awareness, or perspective to bucket the feelings that can come with that kind of intimacy. So they're flooded with this overwhelming, obviously there's a physical feeling, but they're flooded with an emotional sense that they can't wrap their minds around. Again, very overwhelming, and it stalls normal progression of emotion and normal development. Another major challenge with sex at such an early age is it messes with boundaries. All of a sudden, your boundaries are being totally broken, and the boundaries of the other person are being totally broken. So a child learns that boundaries, personal space, expectations, right? People become objects that can be used for somebody else's gain. It can have a catastrophic effect on a person's ability to have healthy relationships in the future. Emotional numbing, impulse control around sex, terrible relationships, and terrible boundaries. And if we shift to Ye today as an adult, I think we see many of those characteristics, right? I think he is numb to the emotions of others. I think he has no regard for the boundaries of his wife or other people. He has terrible relationships, and I think he totally lacks impulse control. So that sort of childhood experience, I think we can see. I'm not saying that everything that we're seeing in Kanye West is a consequence of this relationship with his cousin, but I think his childhood did influence the man that he became. And I have a lot of compassion for that. I think I understand him better. And that sort of brings to a close my empathy in this video. Now let me shift to the child advocate role here. It's wild to me to have Kanye West, who had that kind of childhood, who was in many ways traumatized and corrupted by exposure to porn. It is wild to me that he is sitting here trotting out his wife absolutely nude in front of the world for his kids to see. He was traumatized by porn, and he's essentially brought porn alive in his household. And then he is looking at Kim Kardashian, and he's looking at the courts, and he's saying, I would like more custody of my kids. I have compassion for him. I understand how he got where he got. But if I were the courts, or if I were Kim Kardashian, I would fight to the death to keep the kids away from him. He is not operating as a man that cares about his kids. He's operating as a man that's been traumatized and has no ability to regulate his emotions. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments below.